And now your middle school speaker for today, he's a science teacher who loves showing his students a lot of cool experiments. Give it up for Mr. Blank.
I say let it die.
Let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and... Come on, who's with me, huh?
Nobody.
We say let it grow.
I love plants. I love them so much. I was that science person that was looking at the skit saying those trash bags are made of petrochemicals, and that comes from petroleum products, which comes from plants. But for high school chapel, there is a suit of armor in the shield, so it'll be fine. When I was your age, I was cool like you, and like me, when you go on hikes, I'm sure you had a shovel that you put in your back pocket when you went on hikes to dig up all the plants that you found along the way. This is the exact shovel. This is like 25 years old now, but I love plants. This is when I bought my house. It was the first house I looked at, and I had to buy it. And oddly enough, this was the reason why I had to buy it, because that was the backyard. That's how just before I bought it. I took pictures and I thought, I can work with that. It was a clean slate because I can do this. And so over the next few months, I worked it out and I just put plants all over it. And I'm still adding plants wherever I can. And now there's a certain tree I want you to see in particular. Also, it provides me the opportunity to show off my yard because that's one of my passions. If people brag about their children, I brag about my yard. I used to pray, before I had children, I used to pray about my plants one by one as I fell asleep at night. That, should have brought a pointer. That's Heidi. I had to put the zip line in. But behind Heidi, there's ivy growing up the tree there, and that's a willow tree there. Now that tree was doomed before I bought the house because it already had an issue with it. And now look at the tree. In this picture, there's a lot less leaves on it. See the leaves here? Lots of leaves? Few leaves. The tree is dying. It's still up right now. I have a little tree that I planted next to it that I'm making it grow, and then when it's big enough, I'll cut down the other one. I'm going to cut down half of that willow tree this weekend. This is the back side of it. See all that? Right there? I cut out. It was like wet as mush inside the tree, and I thought, what's this? It's mushy. Because it wasn't cut right and water got in, and so it's like, this is mushy, so I tried to dig out the mush, because the mush is no good. The mush is just going to spread. And I kept cutting down, and it kept going, the mush kept going down, and I had to figure out, when am I going to stop cutting? This rot is going all the way down to the root. I kept a piece of the rot. I mean, it's not wet anymore, but this is that mush. It's not very healthy. That tree is going to die because of that rot. It already is dying. It was dying the day I bought the yard. All right. Now, that rot, obviously, is going to be like sin. And what does rot do to a tree? It kills it. And so I'm just going to go quick to this Bible verse there. I can read it here, I suppose. No, it's too small. All right. But if anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. That's what you have to do. They didn't have trash pickup in the Bible, and you had to do something with your rot. Now, if you leave your rot laying around, it could spread to your other plants, so you had to burn it. And then this next one, I'm not going to read all the parts to you, but it talks about God cutting out branches and grafting new ones in. You don't want to get cut off from God. You do want to be grafted in, and that's what we're going to look at today. See this here? Oh, actually I brought it right here. I forgot So this is from one of the trees outside my classroom. Expertly chosen. All right, so it still looks good. So, but anyway, when there's rot, God has to just cut us off before it spreads down. That is me. And that's anyone who's sinned. We're right there on the ground. And that's why we're doomed. We couldn't be part of this. If we stayed part of this, the whole thing would die. God would not be holy anymore, and we would still be just as doomed anyway. It's not like staying, having rot and being part of a good tree is going to help you. You're still rotten. You're going to rot the whole tree and ruin everything. So you have to get cut off. Now, I don't want to make you think that God leaves us there. He could. He totally could. It's His right. I mean, we did that to ourselves, really, all that sin. But God had a plan. And that plan was to graft us back in. Now, what is this grafting business? We hear about it, but did you know that, well, let's first talk about what it is, I suppose. You take two plants and you put them together. It's not just like pollen, putting pollen and eggs together. You're cutting a part of one plant and you are basically almost gluing it into the other plant. And the two plants are now literally one plant. All fruit trees are, I shouldn't say all, I'm sure there's an exception, but 99% of fruit trees, if you have a fruit tree at home, it's the result of a graft. They took the root, see, fruit trees don't grow well in the desert, and so they took a bottom of a tree that does grow well in the desert, and then they stuck on the top of the tree that we want, an apricot tree, an apple tree, an avocado tree, some kind of tree, and they put the two together. And now you have a tree that has roots for our desert, but the top that we want. And they can do this with pretty much any tree. The trees that you stick together, they do have to be similar. So you can't put an apple tree with an orange tree, but you could put an orange tree with a lemon tree. You can do a golden delicious with a red delicious tree. You can do that kind of thing. And it's not just desert trees that are grafted. No matter where you go, it's easier, better, and it just produces the kind of fruit that we want when you do the graft. And there's different ways of putting the trees together. You can split the top and plug one in. You can cut it into the side, and then you wrap it up. The reason why this works, have to do this, right? The reason why this works, you can cut in, and then you see those layers there. I have a tree trunk on the one and a microscope picture, something on the right. But you have some veins in plants that carry water up and other veins that carry the sugars down. Basically, you cut through both of those on both of the receiving plant and the one you're going to plug it into, the two plants, and then those veins line up, and then the water just flows right up like it always did and just carries on through the new plant, and then the sugars from all those leaves carries right on down. And then why do you graft? Well, you get clonal material. You can produce the same kind of tree over and over and over and over again because you can just do red deliciouses. You don't have to worry about which pollen came from which tree and am I going to get the same apple when I plant this seed. Are you like me? Did you ever plant apple seeds and then wonder why they didn't grow from your apples? Or maybe that was just me, I don't know. But they didn't grow, and if it did grow, it wouldn't have been the tree that you planted because it came from a graft. And so it didn't have the exact normal setup of a seed. But you get the exact tree you want when you graft. You get better fruit production because you're picking what type of plant you want. You get good tree shape and height, so you get to design exactly what you want your tree to be like, and you have that great root that you have there. Now, can you see where I'm going with this? Ultimately, we're going to be like Christ. That's the clonal material. We're going to have fruit production because we're going to love others through Christ, and they're going to see that love. That's the fruit that we bear, is all the things we do out of love. And then the tree shape and height, God's crafting us to be exactly the way He wants us to be. And the beneficial rootstock, well, God Himself is our rootstock. What better root can you have than that? Now, it's one thing to talk about grafting, but I can't graft. I mean, I could try, and I'm sure I could get it to work sometimes, and so could you. But I had my brother who owns an orchard in Florida. I have 3 brothers, and so Mom would like it if I probably talked about all 3, not just the one. Brother number 1, the oldest brother, he teaches in Washington. Some of you might see him when you go to Portland. He always looks for Faith Outerwear and says, "Hey, do you know my brother, Mr. Blank?" And they go, "Yeah, I'm Mr. Blank." And they're like, "No!" Okay. Anyway, and that's John, or Mr. Blank. Danny is the one you're going to see in a moment. He did a lot of third world hunger stuff and traveled around and helped farmers solve problems through all of the stuff that he had access to. But he also bought an orchard on the side. And then there's me, I'm number 3, and then brother number 4. He works for the University of California, Davis, and he kind of works with patent law and seeds and the farmers of California. Farming is very big in California, and he makes sure that all the genetically modified things that are being grown are actually what are being grown. But this is brother number 2, Danny.
Hello, my name is Danny Blank. I am Stephen Blank's older brother, and he asked me to share with you a little bit about grafting. We're here on our farm in Florida, Fort Myers, Florida, where we have 20 varieties of citrus on 10 acres. So we want this plant here, this one is like a California cutie. We want to produce this one, but if we plant the seed of this, we don't necessarily get it. So the way we get around that is we plant a Cleopatra seed, goes in here, produces a branch like this. I always make my cut first on the rootstock because the rootstock's in soil, and this is called a chip bud. I'm going to take and, let's see, find a flat surface, maybe right here, and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to just come down, and it's like a gentle sawing like this, but in a straight line. And I do that, and I'm going to come down with an angle cut like this, make a little bench, and that part comes out. And now I have a place to put my bud. And I'm going to take this branch right here, and this is the plant that we call the scion now, the top part. And this is going to produce the sweet fruit. Here's a bud, here is a bud, here's a bud, right there. And we look for one that's nice and swollen. This is a nice and swollen one here. I could take that one, and I think I will. I'll take this leaf off to get it out of my way. And I'm going to come in and make my cut like this. And then I do my angle cut here. Careful not to touch it with my fingers. I now have my little chip bud. This is the bud that has all the genes, all the programmed material to produce the California cutie here. So I put this in here inside my wedge like this, and it matches very nicely. And a really good graft is when it sits there by itself and you don't have to attend to it or hold it on. Then I take my budding tape or grafting tape, and I'm going to wrap this on. It's like shingling a roof. You start on the bottom and you work your way up.
And he sent me a lot of other good footage, but I had to edit it down. But here's some quick pictures, though. Here is a co-worker of his that's putting an avocado, and this one is a different style. He just cuts an angle and then just rams it right in. He doesn't ram it, but he gently puts it in there, and then it just sticks, and you tape it up, and then, if you do a good job, most of your grafts will stick, and then you've got a new plant. And this one, he's not just putting a bud in, he's putting a whole stem in. And then there you see the little guy growing out. Isn't that cool? So that all of a sudden you can put all these different things together. And then